When Game Informer's cover story for the original Dishonored arrived in my mailbox almost 10 years ago, I quickly skimmed through so I could read more on the upcoming title. It didn't take long before I came across a 2-page spread with the protagonist's iconic mask against the dark and dreary fictional city of Dunwall. Continuing on, I learned about just what the acclaimed and impassioned developers over at Arcane had in store. A story focused on revenge and the supernatural, gameplay suited for both the combative and the stealthy, and most intriguingly, an emphasis on choice when it came to how you played. When I got my hands on the game the following year, it seemed as if Arcane had delivered on every single goal they laid out, so much in fact that I can easily consider Dishonored as one of my all-time favorites, even after all these years. An unfortunate thing about Dishonored, however, is that over the near decade since its release, it seems as if the game is scarcely talked about. In a time where single-player AAA experiences are incredibly popular, Dishonored strangely remains by the wayside. This isn't to say that there is zero support or fan base behind Dishonored, since the title has ended up on greatest video game lists and has gone on to receive a critically acclaimed sequel. It just seems that outside of journalistic publication, Dishonored remains underlooked by the general discussion of great single-player experiences. And hopefully, I can contribute to changing that. Dishonored follows Corvo Itano, the royal protector and secret lover to the Empress of Dunwall, Jessamine Caldwin. The game opens with Corvo returning after several months away on an assignment to look for help with the crippling rat plague that has ravaged the city. After returning and engaging in a game of hide and seek with the Empress's daughter Emily, you meet with Jessamine, in which is revealed that the other cities have actually refused to help and instead will blockade them to ensure it doesn't spread. Things only get worse, however, as you're then ambushed by a group of mystical assassins that successfully incapacitate Corvo and fatally stab Jessamine. Soon after, you are discovered by the Spy Master and framed for the murder of the Empress, becoming the most hated man in Dunwall and locked away in prison. 6 months come to pass, and with the help of mysterious conspirators, you break out of jail and begin your quest for revenge against the Spy Master, who has now risen to the rank of Lord Regent. As you begin your journey, however, in a dreamlike state, you meet a suavely dressed supernatural being known as the Outsider, who believes that the choices you make in the upcoming future will have interesting results. Results that will be dependent on how you've decided to play the rest of the game. The Outsider then brands their mark on your left hand, granting you control of supernatural abilities to aid in your journey. It is then Corvo begins to work with the Loyalists, the group of Regency and aides that were suspicious of the events that took place 6 months prior, in saving Emily, who was captured by the Spy Master's co-conspirators, and bringing down those responsible for the death of the Empress in his imprisonment. After you've brought down the Lord Regent, however, Farley Havelock, leader of the Loyalists, has Sam, the skiff driver who transports you from mission to mission, poison you so that he, Trevor Pendleton, brother to the twins you were sent to dispose of prior, and Teague Martin, an overseer who you've previously saved, can establish Emily as Empress and use her to rule over Dunwall. Sam, not wanting to go through with their plan, however, only partially poisons you and leaves you in the flooded district so that you can recuperate and return to save Emily. In the flooded district, however, you are captured by Dowd and his henchmen and learn that they were the assassins hired to kill Jessamine. After finding yourself unarmed and in the bottom of a pit after being knocked unconscious by the group, you break out, gather your things, and decide to fade the killer, before finding your way back to the Loyalist hideout. Once you return and save the Loyalists who were also betrayed by Havelock, you then head to an island where the defectors are keeping Emily, in which, depending on your actions throughout the game, will determine the ending. It's a very well done story of revenge, as it invests you well in its stakes early on and does well in maintaining that throughout. Within the second half though, it could be said that it gets a bit repetitive due to the twist that takes place and is rather short at only 10 hours, but it's still a pretty enjoyable journey from start to finish. What really makes it all come together though is the voice acting and the characters, which every performance here is incredibly well done, including Emily, who is voiced by Chloe Grace Moretz of Kick-Ass fame. Gameplay is where Dishonored really comes together to be the brilliant title that it is. To start off, let's talk about Arcane's excellent level design, because it is essentially tied to just about all other aspects here. Each level is a sandbox that has multiple ways of getting from where you start to where you need to be, whether that's a straightforward route or finding a way completely off the beaten path. On your first playthrough of a mission, you might find yourself sticking to the shadows, watching the patrolling patterns that the guards take and methodically infiltrating that way, while the next, you may upgrade your blink sooner and be able to traverse along the rooftops instead. Or you could buy possession and travel through an opening as a fish, or vent as a rat, or completely stop time and just run to where you need to be before time starts again, just to name a few possibilities. In Dishonored, for the most part, the only limits here are your resources and your own creativity. Exploration is another huge part of the game that is actively encouraged as you progress. Not only is there an assortment of readable collectibles that further flesh out the world, but also tons of important items such as mission clues and bone charms, which are equipable bonuses that add extra abilities to Corvo, but also runes and blueprints which upgrade your powers, physical capabilities, and equipment. When it comes to actual gameplay, there is quite a bit at your disposal. Whenever you take your equipment out, you always have a tool or power in your left hand and Corvo's sword in your right. Tools range from a crossbow that can be loaded with either lethal arrowheads, sleep darts, or incendiary bolts, a pistol, grenades, razor wire, a motion-based instant killing trap, and a clockwork heart that shows you where runes and bone charms are, and has the voice of the dead empress.
At the Academy, they cut the flesh of the dead and trap the lightning from the sky.
As for powers, you have Blink, a mid-range teleportation, Dark Sight, which allows for you to see enemies through walls, Possession, which allows you to transfer your entire being into a fish or rat, Wind Blast, Bend Time, and Devouring Swarm. When it comes to combat, the trick to Dishonored is using your weapons in tandem with one another or with your powers, especially since all of the weapons and powers have a cooldown or some sort of drawback, such as the crossbow and pistol needing to reload after each use. Instead of just clashing swords or shooting guards in the face, you might freeze time, shoot one in the face, then cook a grenade to near detonation and toss it at the rest of the group to reduce them to nothing but a pile of limbs and torsos. Enemy AI are pretty aggressive when combat breaks out and work together to overpower you, which can at times be used to your advantage by making one accidentally shoot the other. And one last note on the gameplay, a point that I've been hinting at throughout this overview. The world of Dishonored is affected by a system Arcane has implemented called Chaos. High Chaos, which comes from you killing more people, results in the game adding more hazards for you to have to navigate around and ends the game in a grimmer light, while Low Chaos prevents more hazards being added and gives you a much happier ending. And though immediately the first thought would be that this is punishing for those who prefer taking the more violent route in their stealth games, the game does strike a balance and added difficulty for those, like me, who decided to play non-lethally, since non-lethal playthroughs require you to seek out and complete tasks in order to bypass their deadly options. For example, during the level The Golden Cat, you have to take down 2 targets inside of a ritzy brothel littered with guards. Obviously, a lethal playthrough might see you playing a little more cautiously until both targets are taken care of. The alternate to this, however, is to help out a gang leader in torturing an artist for a safe code who, in return, will non-lethally deal with the targets. Doing so, however, still requires you to break into the Golden Cat, torture the artist, return to the gang leader, then move on to complete the final objective. It essentially adds a set of challenges no matter which playstyle you go with, and it's something that can very much be appreciated from the folks at Arcane.
You'll never know how happy you've made me. Someday she'll learn to appreciate me. After all, she'll have her whole life.
To conclude, Dishonored is a terrific gem of a game that, though very much exists in the AAA sphere with its lineage in Bethesda and Arcane, it is one of the more criminally underlooked titles to have come out within the last decade since its release. And though its plot isn't winning awards for outstanding writing, it does perfectly engross you in its deep, dark and depressing world of treason, murder, sickness, and the supernatural. And the open-ended gameplay will leave you experimenting with the different paths, weaponry, and tools at your disposal. Dishonored is truly one of my all-time favorites, and I will absolutely recommend everyone watching to look more into it. If you're a PC or Xbox owner, I would certainly suggest playing this on Game Pass if you're subscribed, or purchase a copy of the definitive edition on Xbox One or PS4. This has been Waxo, and until next time, take it easy.